Helen Yee here with Eyes on the Game in Phoenix, Arizona, being joined by the legend, the man himself, Mr. Donovan McNabb. Now, I know you've been extremely busy and lately coaching your daughter's AAU team here, right?
Yes, I am. That's something I take a lot of pride in, of just working with the girls. I'm focusing with them on their strength and conditioning, and then obviously preparing them for basketball on the court. They've been playing well. We have a couple teams that are involved. We have our 15s, our 16s, our 17s, and a few RISE teams that play regionally. So just trying to stay involved with those girls. I mean, she's a freshman right now, so it's a little bit more years to go. She just came out of her freshman year of basketball with the high school. They lost in the state championship, so we have 3 more years of hopefully some happiness and great things to come.
But so the teenage years, around same age as Kobe Bryant's daughter?
Kobe, I think his daughter may be 12. Okay. So my daughter's 14, and maybe they'll compete against each other this weekend. We'll see the Mambas. But, you know, the whole thing about it is we've had a chance to talk, Kobe and I, and it was just a question of how did he feel about the AAU circuit? He was kind of questioning it at that particular time because she was younger. He has an older daughter who plays soccer, and he thought she would be the one playing basketball. Well, he has the younger one with a lot of energy, and she's pretty awesome if you get a chance to watch her. But, you know, we've kind of talked back and forth. He's a big Eagles fan, so we've known each other for a while, and it's good to see that our daughters are kind of following in some footsteps that we have.
Yes, absolutely, and to learn from the legends themselves. But like I said, so much going on here in Arizona with the Cardinals, drafted Kyler Murray. What did you think of that pick?
Well, you know, I thought that the best move for them was to keep Josh Rosen and kind of develop him a little bit and build around him. I thought last year was a hard year to evaluate a young quarterback. You know, when you have Larry Fitzgerald on the outside, but the offensive line was in shambles. There wasn't a true number 2 receiver or security blanket at the tight end position. David Johnson was battling injury all year. Defensively, you had Patrick Patterson and also Chandler Jones, but what else did you really have? I mean, so coming into this draft where you have a new coaching staff, Steve Keim is coming back into this next year to be the GM. He's kind of on the hot seat. So when you go and draft a quarterback, what message are you sending to the fans? Are you now rebuilding? Are you kind of just going back into a phase of, hey, give us 3 more years of grace period? I think with Kyler Murray, he's a dynamic quarterback that brings excitement to the fans. But who's he going to be working with? You know, David Johnson's back healthy. Larry Fitzgerald is now, I think, in his 14th year or so. But he needs some help on the outside as well as the offensive line to protect.
A lot of people like to kind of pinpoint Kyler Murray's size, and with him being slightly smaller, would you say that would work as an advantage or disadvantage?
Well, I mean, I look at it in a sense like this. Hey, you know, he was backing up, you know, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's not that big either. He may be a little thicker than Kyler Murray, but I think when it comes to overall athletic ability, we've seen this young man be dynamic, running the football and throwing the football. There's a reason he was drafted in the top 10 in football and in baseball. So let's look at it that way. I think when you have a young talent like that, you want to develop him as a pocket passer first with the ability to run. So that means you have to build around him to give him some weapons. I mean, hey, some bubble screens. Maybe David Johnson now gets back to the 1,500 to 1,600 yards rushing, and that takes pressure off of this young man where you can continue each year to build around him.
You mentioned Josh Rosen. With him going to Miami under Coach Brian Flores, how well do you think he'll do there?
Well, you know, I think you have to look at it as a defensive-minded head coach who's going to make sure that his defense is intact, but offensively, what does he have around him there? I mean, there's a running back by committee there. There's a wide receiver that's not a number 1 receiver there. I think they have a number 1 tight end that can definitely help him out in so many ways. Offensive line, I think, is better in Miami than here with the Arizona Cardinals. But what type of identity are you going to have? Is it going to be kind of that same kind of New England approach, or is he going to bring something different to the Miami Dolphins and their fan club? I think the best way of attacking it is to run first and then play action pass in the offensive game and defensively be able to attack quarterbacks.
Very well said from the expert. Now, I am from Las Vegas, and we're getting the Raiders. Obviously, no secret now. They're relocating here summer of 2020. What do you make of that?
Well, 2019's got to be a hot one for him. This has to be the year, I think, where the David Carr kind of takes 2 steps ahead. Because just a couple years ago, he was an MVP candidate. You know, he didn't battle injury all throughout the year until the last game of the year where they needed him in the playoffs. Their backside tackle and Penn retired. Offensive line is still trying to get things together. Marshawn Lynch is retired. You bring Antonio Brown in. Bryant is still at the wide receiver position. I just think for really John Gruden in this year, they have to form an identity as a football team, not offensively, but as a football team. Their secondary is still in shambles. They go out and get defense, and they start to kind of build in the draft. So Mike Mayock's first year is going to be really important for them to try to finish 9-7, 10-6. So now that brings explosion back to Vegas, and everyone gets excited about them.
But how well do you think that Antonio Brown will gel with the team?
I think it's more of gelling with his quarterback. We've seen the situation, and I've been a part of it, where he kind of tried to trash his quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. Not only that, did he trash his running mate at the wide receiving position. So is this something that may be a pattern? Will, when things go wrong, is he going to go after David Carr? Is he going to go after Gruden? You hope things kind of calm down and you get kind of the on-field Antonio Brown where he makes plays and he's a 100-catch kind of a guy. If that happens for David Carr and hopefully someone elevates their game on the other side and they are able to run the football with a great pick in Jacobs from Alabama, I think offensively they'll do some good things.
When I spoke to Mark Davis last year, he said when they move to Las Vegas, of course, they're hoping to bring championships there. And also, you give that phase. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, first you got to get in the playoffs before you get to championships. And I think for the Oakland Raiders, you have to look at the division they're playing in. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are on the rise. I think the Denver Broncos will be a little bit better this year. San Diego Chargers are still consistent with their old school quarterback in Phillip Rivers. So it's going to be a battle and a grind all throughout the season, just in the division alone. So I think for the Jay Grudens and also the Mike Mayocks, and you just mentioned it, Davis, I think what they have to do is they have to try to win in bunches. Defend your home territory, play well, at least win 75% of your games at home, and then on the road be able to steal a few wins. And I think if they're finishing 10-6, that should put them at least in the first or second slot in their division, which leads you into the playoffs.
But do you think that Las Vegas will be a good football town?
I think it's interesting. I think it will be eventually because I think the NBA will begin now to follow, and they'll bring an NBA team there. You already have hockey there, which you've seen what they were able to do last year. They made an explosion, and this year as well. So at least you have hockey that get the fans in Vegas excited. Football now comes in once that stadium's built, and I think probably in about 2-3 years we'll start to hear rumblings about an NBA team going there. They're bringing the All-Star game back to Vegas. So now I think the excitement is not just for the gambling and being out on the Strip. It'd be more about sports.
Have you had a chance to check out the new stadium?
I've kind of seen the rebuild of kind of just, the structures and things of that nature. I was there in Mandalay Bay. I got a chance to watch a little bit of the WNBA play with the Aces. And then now you look at what hockey's done. So I'm excited to see what the stadium's actually going to look like. And not only that, I hear they're trying to eliminate tailgating there at the stadium. That's not a good sign when it comes to Vegas and excitement. So we'll see how that lasts.
And it was announced today that ESPN will be having a new studio there. Does that mean we may be able to see you there? Or because I know you also do commentating?
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully things will open up where I can get a little bit more involved with that. I definitely enjoy the analytical work of calling games and then also doing some studio work. So we'll see how things open up. Just want to take one day at a time. Got a lot on my plate at this particular point with coaching and also being dad and being parent and soccer dad, everything else that I am. So that's an enjoyment time this right now for the off season, but we'll see what happens during the year.
You deserve it, definitely. And it's always great to stay busy, right?
Yeah.
But in 2020, not only are the Raiders relocating to Las Vegas, but the XFL, they're trying to make that big comeback. Do you think that it will be successful?
Well, I think what we look at now, we have the arena football. We just obviously had the league that kind of folded due to the financial aspect that they wanted to kind of build and be the second step toward back to the NFL for a lot of these guys. So if the XFL can at least last I would say 7 to 10 years, that would at least give a lot of these guys who aren't drafted or who maybe were released or cut during OTAs or training camp to at least continue their football careers and just put some film out there to get back in the NFL. So as long as it's not like it was before, then I think they'll work out.
What do you think they need to do differently?
The XFL, I look at it more of a sense of kind of just being like the G League in basketball. You know, be able to have some structure, be able to take care of themselves financially where they're paying these players and not kind of holding checks because they're not able to pay each week to make sure that as from a network standpoint that we're seeing different teams play. So now you're promoting the league and not just one or two teams that are playing well. We want to see all teams play where now these guys are still back on TV promoting themselves and their brand so that they'll have an opportunity to move up to the next step.
Well, speaking of teams playing well, the Super Bowl champs this past year, the Patriots, did that surprise you at all?
It did a little bit. But I mean, when you look at the game and the way the game was going, it's just the way they play. You know, they allow you to make mistakes, and which kind of will lead to the ball being back in Tom's hands. Tom's the guy that takes care of the ball, and for a defensive standpoint, they're a bend but don't break defense. So if you're constantly making mistakes and you're getting out on third down, now Tom has the ball and more opportunities to put the ball in the end zone. It was a close game, which is always a close game. And if you're not able to kind of seal the deal at the end, you'll probably be upset because you'll see Tom holding up that trophy again.
What about that being it for Rob Gronkowski?
You know, the body it's a temple, and Father Time's undefeated. And when you continuously bang your body up each week, and he's had multiple surgeries on different parts of his body, your body's going to tell you when it's done. And we all want to play this game till we can't anymore. We want to put 15, 20 years up, but not everybody's blessed to be able to do that. But you can look back on your career and never regret anything because he's had some wonderful times. I mean, he's got some Super Bowl rings. He's had fun times with obviously Tom and the guys. He's a party guy that enjoys himself, and I think he'll have a career probably in reality TV or something to that effect, and we'll probably see more cruises where he's performing and dancing on the cruise with the ladies or whatever it may be. So I think he'll be fine.
And with the Patriots, though, some news that has been around recently regarding Robert Kraft. Do you think that Roger Goodell, will handle that situation in a good way?
Well, I think it's only right. It's only right because, he does the same thing with players, and you have to hold the owners to that same standard. And the same with GMs. Steve Keim went through an issue last year, and he had to sit out, I think, 9 games. So I don't think it will be any different for owners. And the same with him. And I know he's going through some legal issues right now, and I think there will be suspensions. And I think I don't know if it's a $500,000 or $1 million fine that he has to pay with all of this. And I think it probably at some point it'll blow over and we'll be just focusing on football. But at this time, the summer, it's all on Robert Kraft.
And lastly, I know you are a big fight fan, big fan of MMA. Who's your favorite fighter? You know what?
I'm an Anderson Silva fan I've got a chance to watch, I think, one of his first fights, John Bones Jones. Obviously, both of his brothers went to Syracuse University, which I'm representing the Orange. And then Cormier and the things he's been able to do. There are a lot of up-and-coming fighters that I think are really making a name for themselves. Some of these younger 115, 120 guys, 120-pound guys, I don't really mess with them too much.
No Henry Cejudo?
No, I mean, I love watching them fight. Don't get me wrong. I love watching them fight. But I like to see the heavyweights. I like to see the good 200s, the 220 guys, those tall, muscular guys out there moving around. So, and also, hey, I'll be at a couple fights coming up, so look for me ringside and just getting involved.
Well, we can't wait to see you in Las Vegas, whether it's for the Raiders or some good fights or ESPN.
Yes. We got options. Football's coming up, hockey's there. The women's basketball, the Aces, pretty soon we'll see maybe an NBA team. So I'll be in Vegas for something. Just keep an eye out.
Yes, and what would you like to tell all your fans?
Hey, keep an eye on, look out for Donovan McNabb. Good things are going to happen in this 2019, also 2020. Doors are opening up. I'm very excited. Hey, basketball season just wrapping up, getting the championship play. Before you know it, football season will start off again.
And like you said, options are never a bad thing. Well,
Never a bad thing.
thank you so much for your time, and great to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.